Welcome to the Health Headliner podcast by Tudu Digital. Our content is informational only and not medical advice. Please consult your provider. Now, let's dive into today's headlines.
Think about this. Globally, infections are becoming harder and harder to treat. It's kind of a silent crisis, but it's definitely hitting us now. And a prime example is gonorrhea. It's a really common sexually transmitted infection, but it's increasingly defying our go-to medication.
Absolutely. And this isn't just some minor thing.
No.
Untreated, it can have serious consequences. We're talking potential impacts on fertility, on pregnancy. It's significant.
Exactly. The fact that something once easily treatable is showing this level of resistance, it really underscores a huge problem with our current options.
It really does. Finding new ways to fight it is, it's crucial.
And that's exactly why we're diving deep today, because there's some potentially game-changing news out there.
Oh, no.
A new oral pill. It's called Gepotidacin, and it looks pretty promising in this fight against drug-resistant gonorrhea.
Okay, Gepotidacin. So for this deep dive, what are we looking at? What are our sources?
We've got two main things. First, there's a health news article from April 14th, 2025 that gives us the sort of overview. But more importantly, we have the detailed findings from a phase 3 clinical trial. This was just published in The Lancet, a really top medical journal, on the very same day.
Ah, The Lancet. Okay, so we have the peer-reviewed data. That's excellent.
Exactly. So our goal today is to really break this down. What does this new medication, Gepotidacin, actually mean? In the context of this growing threat of antibiotic resistance, why should this be on your radar?
Okay, let's get into it. The EGLE1 trial, right? That's the study name.
Yep, EGLE1.
So the main point of this study, basically, they wanted to see how well this new oral pill, Gepotidacin, worked compared to what we use now, the standard treatment.
And they were looking at effectiveness and safety, too.
Effectiveness and safety, yes. Specifically for what they call uncomplicated urogenital gonorrhea, so infections of the urinary tract and genital areas.
Okay, and what is that standard treatment they were comparing it against, just to be clear?
Right now, the standard involves a shot, an injection of a drug called ceftriaxone.
Into the muscle, yeah.
Into the muscle, exactly. Plus, you also take a single pill of another antibiotic, azithromycin.
Okay, that combination. So, injection plus a pill. How did they set up the EGL1 trial to test the new pill against that?
Well, it was a phase 3 trial. That's a pretty advanced stage, testing it in a larger group of people.
Right, rigorous.
Very. It was randomized, so people were assigned by chance to get either Gepotidacin or the standard treatment.
Okay.
It was also open label, meaning everyone knew which treatment they were getting, but importantly, sponsor blinded.
Meaning the company funding it didn't know who got what while it was happening?
Exactly. Helps reduce bias. And it was multi-center, done across 49 different places in 6 countries.
Wow. Which countries?
Let's see, Australia, Germany, Mexico, Spain, the UK, and the US.
Okay, quite a spread. How many people actually took part?
They enrolled 628 people. They had to be 12 years or older, weigh over 45 kilos, and were suspected of having this uncomplicated urogenital gonorrhea.
Based on symptoms or lab tests?
Yeah, either symptoms like discharge or a positive test. And this ran between October 2019 and October 2023.
Right. And the actual treatments, what did each group get?
Okay, so the Gepotidacin group got 2 pills, 3,000 milligrams each, taken about 10 to 12 hours apart.
2 pills. And the other group?
They got the standard, that single 500 milligram shot of ceftriaxone, plus the single 1 gram pill of azithromycin, all given on the first day at the study site.
So 2 pills over, say, half a day versus a one-time shot and pill combo. How did they measure if it worked? What was the main outcome?
The primary endpoint, the main thing they looked for, was called microbiological success.
Meaning?
Basically, did the treatment completely get rid of the Neisseria gonorrhea bacteria from the urinary and genital areas? They checked this with a lab culture test at a follow-up visit, usually about 4 to 8 days after treatment.
Okay.
And it's worth noting, the main analysis focused on people whose gonorrhea was confirmed susceptible to ceftriaxone at the start.
Gotcha. So the big question, what did they find? Did the new pill work as well as the standard treatment?
Yes, it did. That's the key takeaway. Gepotidacin was found to be just as effective.
Just as effective.
Yep. The success rate for clearing the infection was 92.6% in the Gepotidacin group and 91.2% in the standard treatment group.
Okay, those numbers are really close.
They are. Statistically, this means Gepotidacin was non-inferior, essentially. not worse than the standard. So cutting through the numbers, this new oral pill works just as well as the current injection plus pill method.
That is a big deal, considering the resistance issues we started with.
Huge deal.
And you mentioned the health news article. Did it say something about effectiveness against resistant strains, too?
That's right. The study also showed that Gepotidacin was effective against gonorrhea bacteria that had already shown resistance to other existing antibiotics.
Wow.
And another good sign. In both groups, they didn't find any cases where the bacteria just sort of hung around in the urogenital area after treatment. It seemed to clear it completely.
Okay, that all sounds very positive on the effectiveness front. What about side effects? Any differences there?
There were some. The group getting Gepotidacin had a slightly higher rate of mild to moderate stomach issues.
Like what?
Mostly diarrhea and nausea. Those are the most common things reported. Fewer people in the standard treatment group had those.
But were they serious side effects?
No, and that's really important. No severe or serious side effects related to the treatment occurred in either group. So yes, maybe a bit more chance of an upset stomach with the pills.
But nothing alarming. Is that seen as a major drawback, or is it generally considered an acceptable trade-off for an oral option?
That's a good question. Given the convenience of an oral pill and its effectiveness, especially against resistant strains, these mild to moderate gastrointestinal effects might be seen as manageable for many, but it's definitely something patients and doctors would need to discuss.
Okay. So it really does seem like Gepotidacin could be a valuable alternative. Let's dig into the implications now. What does this mean for us?
Well, the biggest implication is probably in fighting antibiotic resistance. Like we said, drug-resistant gonorrhea is a serious growing threat. Treatment options are dwindling.
Yeah.
Gepotidacin works differently. It stops the bacteria from copying their DNA in a way that's distinct from our current antibiotics. It's a new mechanism of action.
A new weapon in the arsenal.
Exactly. And consider this. There hasn't been an entirely new class of antibiotics for gonorrhea introduced since the 1990s.
Wow, the 90s. That really puts this into perspective. That's a long time to rely on the same kinds of drugs.
It is. So having something truly novel is incredibly important.
It's not just tweaking an old drug. Okay, what other advantages could an oral pill offer?
Well, just from a patient standpoint, taking pills is often way more appealing than getting a shot, right?
Absolutely. Less invasive.
Less invasive. And think about people with needle phobias. For them, an oral option could make a huge difference in actually getting treated and completing the treatment. Better adherence, potentially.
That makes total sense. Convenience matters in healthcare. What about the bigger picture, the healthcare system?
There could be benefits there, too. Giving injections means trained staff, specific clinic setups, maybe observation time,
Right.
an oral treatment, potentially easier to manage in different settings. Could maybe free up some of those resources, staff time, clinic space.
Interesting. So potential resource savings, too. The news article also mentioned antibiotic stewardship. How does Gepotidacin fit in there?
Right, stewardship. That's about using antibiotics wisely so they stay effective for longer.
Protecting what we have.
Exactly. By having another effective option like Gepotidacin, maybe we don't have to rely so heavily on ceftriaxone for gonorrhea.
So using Gepotidacin could help preserve ceftriaxone's effectiveness.
That's the idea. It helps keep that important drug working for longer, maybe not just for gonorrhea, but other infections too. It diversifies our approach.
Okay, so the potential benefits look pretty compelling, but like with any research, there are always limitations, right? Things we still don't know.
Absolutely. Very important to talk about those. While the results are encouraging, this EGILI-1 study primarily looked at gonorrhea in the urinary and genital areas.
Urethra and cervix, most.
Right. We still need more research to know for sure how well Gepotidacin works against gonorrhea infections elsewhere, like in the rectum or the throat.
Which can definitely happen.
They can. So EGILI-1 gives us great data, but it's not the whole picture for every type of gonorrhea infection.
But were there limitations regarding the people in the study, too, the demographics?
Yes, that's another key point. The participants were predominantly white men. There was a relatively small number of women, included in the main analysis, only 34. So we definitely need more research to see how Gepotidacin works specifically in women, also in adolescents, and in people from more diverse ethnic backgrounds.
Because different groups can react differently sometimes.
Exactly. It's important to confirm effectiveness and safety across the board.
Okay. And what about those infections in the rectum and throat? You mentioned they need more research. Was that because they didn't collect many samples?
That's part of it. Collecting rectal and pharyngeal swabs was optional in the study.
Ah, okay.
So they just had smaller numbers of samples from those sites to analyze. The results look kind of promising for rectal infections, but for throat infections, the data is still pretty limited. More investigation needed there.
Got it. And one more thing about the study design, you said it was open label. Does that introduce any potential issues?
It can. Open label means both the participants and the researchers knew who was getting which treatment. That could potentially introduce some bias.
How so?
Well, knowing the treatment might subconsciously influence reporting of symptoms, for example. However, the main measure of success here was the objective lab test, the culture.
Ah, the microbiological cure.
Right. That helps minimize the risk of bias for the primary outcome, but it's still a limitation to be aware of.
Okay. So acknowledging those limitations, what's the overall feeling from the scientists involved? What's their take?
The study authors themselves, they seem quite positive. They really believe gepotidacin could be an important new tool against resistant gonorrhea.
And they highlight the benefits of a pill.
Yes, they emphasize that having a pill-only treatment could really improve things for patients and potentially ease the load on healthcare systems.
But they also acknowledge the need for more data. Yeah.
Absolutely. They're clear that more studies are needed in different populations for those other infection sites we talked about.
Makes sense.
But overall, the study really underscores just how urgent the need is for new gonorrhea treatments because resistance just keeps climbing.
It definitely sounds like a significant step forward. So let's bring this back to our listeners. What are the key takeaways from this deep dive on gepotidacin?
Well, I think first, just recognizing the significance of a new oral treatment emerging now when antibiotic resistance is such a huge challenge.
It's bigger than just gonorrhea, really.
Exactly. It highlights this broader battle against resistant bacteria and how vital developing new antimicrobials is.
And it also makes you think about how we manage STIs, doesn't it? Both personally and for public health.
For sure. Having treatments that are maybe easier to take could impact, how readily people seek care, how well they stick to the treatment. That affects community spread.
Right. So it's worth keeping an eye on further research here, not just on gepotidacin, but on antibiotic resistance generally and the efforts to find new solutions.
Definitely.
And maybe that leads us to a final thought for everyone listening.
Yeah.
With these mounting challenges from antibiotic resistance, are new drugs like gepotidacin the only answer? What other kinds of innovations, maybe things beyond just new medications, might we need to protect public health going forward?
That's a big question. Thinking beyond just the drugs themselves. Maybe diagnostics, prevention, surveillance.
Yeah, something to mull over. What does the future of fighting infection really look like?
Thanks for tuning in to the Health Headliner podcast by To Digital. Like and subscribe for more health news and breakthroughs. Stay healthy and informed. See you next time.